everyone. You're listening to The Future of Food Is You, a production of the Cherry Bomb Podcast Network. I'm your host, Abena Anim-Somuah, and each week I talk to emerging talents in the food world, and they share what they're up to, as well as their dreams and predictions for what's ahead. I love this new generation of chefs, bakers, and creatives making their way in the worlds of food, drink, media, and tech. Today's guest is Lauren Dozier. Her quilt cookies with their vintage meets modern aesthetic have gone viral, and her other whimsical creations delight everyone who follows her on Instagram. Lauren and I talk baking, and we discuss how loving vintage and antiques as Black women can feel complicated at times. I found Lauren's perspective on this fascinating. Stay tuned for our chat. If you're an aspiring magazine collector, you need to check out Cherry Bomb. Each issue is thick and lush and celebrates women and culinary creatives via gorgeous photography and great stories and recipes. Whether you collect magazines, read them and pass them along to your friends, or cut them up for your vision boards or collages, you'll love Cherry Bomb. You can find Cherry Bomb wherever indie magazines are sold. Places like the Lantern Inn in Wassaic, New York, Bold Fork Books in Washington, D.C., and Broken Tart in Oak Park, Illinois. Or visit cherrybomb.com to order an issue today. Now let's check in with today's guest. Lauren, thank you so much for joining us on the Future Food Is You podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Where did you grow up and how did food show up in your life?
I grew up in the Appalachian Mountains of Southwest Virginia, but I think for a really long time, I saw food as a creative venue. I remember forcing my friends' parents to eat these really crappy soups that we'd made, and it was just like vegetables floating in water and kind of just playing around in the kitchen. I had like one of those little plastic toy kitchens that I was obsessed with as a kid.
Yeah.
But yeah, my mom is a woman of many gifts, but she's not big into cooking. She told me I was allowed to say that because I was like, would it hurt your feelings?
Yeah.
And she was just like, reiterate that I have other skills. I always felt really empowered by being able to make things for myself. And I think I've always been the kind of person who like sees something they want within reason and kind of thinks like, well, I can make that. Which is definitely a privilege to like have access to those resources. If I ever wanted a sweet treat or something that I saw on the internet, I was like, maybe I'll just try making it myself.
Well, what were some of the things that were pretty prominent at family holidays and stuff? And was there a point where you started to make any of those or take the responsibility on?
Yeah. I mean, I'm the oldest sibling and I'm the only
Nice.
daughter. And I'm also the only daughter on my mom's entire side of the family, like in my generation.
All your cousins there are dudes.
Mhm.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah. But I think it was also like a very maternal environment because like my grandma, my Mima was like such a big presence. Yeah, I am also a Capricorn, so I very quickly kind of wanted to take control at like holidays and stuff. Yeah, my great-grandmother was Jamaican, so we would have a lot of rice and peas kind of incorporated with more dishes like rooted in the American South. But yeah, my responsibility kind of started out as dessert. And at this point, I think when it's just my immediate family, I do try to take over holiday dinners.
Yeah. So it sounds like that responsibility led to what is now your love of baking.
Yeah.
What were some of the first recipes that you made growing up?
I think they've always been very visual driven. I remember being obsessed with Pinterest even in like our computer class.
Wow.
In high school.
Cute. Yeah.
And so I was very into like Hello Kitty cake pop. Sometimes that shows up on my Facebook memories from like over 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, we were really in the game for a while. Mm-hmm. Even though it was very scrappy and amateur.
Yeah.
Just a lot of desserts, cake pops, very into pretzels, but like shaping them into
Non-pretzel
puppies
things
and stuff like that.
That's awesome. Right now, you are primarily sharing your bakes and your treats on Instagram, and they're so lovely.
Thank you.
I really feel like you walk this fine line between being nostalgic but also a little bit modern.
Yeah.
Can you tell our listeners who aren't acquainted with your work how you would describe your cookie style?
Yeah. I want to try to avoid chronically online aesthetic buzzwords like cottagecore and like something like that. But
yeah.
I think I do like to lean into pastoral, not to be overly pretentious, but like painterly. I'm just like definitely visually driven. And I definitely love playing with textures and like mimicking textiles. Whimsical, very influenced by whatever I'm watching or reading at the time or whatever I'm looking at on Pinterest. Admittedly, I live on Pinterest.
Yeah, Pinterest top user of the year over here.
Yeah.
I love that. Are there 3 pieces of art, movies, or books that you think really represent your foundational thought process when it comes to cookies that you're making?
I think about Betye Saar's work all the time. I would call her mixed media collagist. And a lot of her work is definitely very influenced by Black ancestry, but also oftentimes it has a dark, mystical side to it. So I really relate to playing with mediums. I was a print major in undergrad, so I was really into Mary Cassatt and the kind of softness and tender relationship to the home she has in her work. And her work is also very maternal influenced. And then I think the third person that I was thinking about might be Beatrix Potter.
Oh my gosh. A classic.
My bedroom as a kid actually was Peter Rabbit themed.
Even the wallpaper and everything? Or did you, the
Oh
colors?
my God, I can't remember. It was like when I was a newborn baby.
Oh my gosh, bless your mom. That's so sweet.
Yeah, it was really cute. I mean, we still have like remnants of it in our house. I think about children's literature and children's illustration all the time. And again, I love nature and the pastoral and like cute little creatures.
Yeah. Cute, whimsical, Jane Eyre era
definitely.
stuff. I love that. And also for our listeners who don't know who Mary Cassatt is, she's an American painter and graphic artist who was quite prominent in the late 1800s to early 1900s. That's so fun. Obviously, you've talked about Pinterest. It seems like that's probably where you're spending a lot of your time. I'm someone who's slowly getting into Pinterest. How do you use the app as a platform to build your mood boards and get inspired?
Oh my God. I mean, I think I do have a sense of what I'm looking for already, but I'm not going to say I'm not influenced by what the algorithm is also giving me. Yeah, so I do use Pinterest to mood board before a baking project, and I kind of have a sense of what I want in my head already, but I think it is a great resource for being led to other visuals that are like similar to something that you already know you like. I'm like really driven by creating a sense of atmosphere, even if the board might be more or less literal than the final product. I think it's a really fun piece of a project. And when I'm writing, I'll create mood boards, and sometimes I'll even just keep them as a little tab to feel like I'm sitting in my little world that I made.
Love that. That's so cute.
But Pinterest is the best. But yeah, I'm also obsessed with shuffles. I don't know if you've ever used that. And you can use your pins and create little cutouts and make collages. That's how I make all my foam backgrounds. It's really fun.
So the way the team and I found you was with your quilt cookies, which took the internet by storm. We had a little moment there.
Thank you.
And I think they're so adorable. It's almost like you took, grandma's quilt and turned it into a little 3x3-inch cookie.
Yeah.
What was the inspiration for that style of cookie decorating?
I think I came to that project from a few directions. I was thinking about the slice and bake checkered cookies and how I could play with that method. I hadn't done slice and bake a ton, but I used to play with polymer clay a lot.
Yes.
And some of those methods are kind of similar of creating the canes and then slicing them. So I was thinking what if I took each little block and made that a pattern? I originally wanted to do patchwork cookie. So I went about it that way. It was really messy. It was a fun project and it was really vibrant, but I was like, ain't no way I'm doing this again. Maybe in the future, but I was like, I can't do this again. And
Very
I just
rustic.
wanted it to look like a little neater and more geometric, I think. So then I was like, would it be ridiculous if I really just cut out every single piece of a quilt block? Looked at a bunch of images of traditional quilt patterns and tried to think of the one that I thought would be simple to replicate, but would still really have a fun shape. I think I drew it on my iPad the first
Love
time
an
I did.
iPad. With the pencil?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I
Yeah.
love an iPad.
I use the iPad a lot, just sketching out what I want to bake. And then sometimes I'll even color it in, so I have a really strict visual guide for myself. So I used that probably the first couple times that I made the quilt cookies. Yeah, and it was a lot of fun. I just had my iPad set up in front of me. And yeah, I just used a pretty traditional sugar cookie recipe and divided the batches into different colors. I definitely like to work season by season, so I wanted it to be warm autumnal colors. Yeah, and I've always been surrounded by really beautiful handmade quilts where I'm from, and I have ancestors who are really into quilting. I had a lot of children's books about quilting, so it's been something that I've been super into ever since I was little.
I want to know more about the science behind the sugar cookies. Is it just like a classic, Betty Crocker, Good Housekeeping type recipe?
Yeah, I use the kind of sugar cookie that you would use for like cut out Christmas cookies because that's like more malleable.
Yes.
And I think doesn't rise quite as much and won't spread as much.
You can freeze those too, so that way you have a good base before you put them in the oven, or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't actually have too much trouble with them spreading, so I don't... I tend to not have to put them in the fridge like before baking.
Really?
And I think the little rise that you do get actually helps to adhere the different blocks. Because people often ask, how do you get it to stay together? Do you use like an egg wash or something? And I really don't. I think once it starts rising, it really helps the little pieces to stick together.
How do you decide on the colors and the shapes that you want to use? Because I'm just looking right now, your Instagram, you've got this one with 9 of the cookies together. And it's like, you can clearly tell there's the pink triangles, the plain triangles, the blue triangles, and then you've got hearts. You've got other shapes in there as well.
Yeah. I think when I was baking them over the holiday season, I definitely was making it a priority to incorporate red a lot. And I just think it's a beautiful color to work with. So I would kind of just start with red and then ask what colors look good with red. And I love pastels, so I love that balance of like the primary and then a soft pink. Turquoise is one of my favorite colors, and I think that contrasts really beautifully. And then as far as shape, I was just like, I don't want to get too crazy, but what if I swapped out a little heart in the center just with a cookie cutter? Sometimes the color palette is the most challenging part for me because when I was an art major, I actually primarily worked in black and white and just like line work. And I think it's such a gift to be good at color matching. I have a couple of books actually. You can just turn to it and find like an awesome color palette.
Are there any baking tips you have for someone who's wanting to get started in creating craft out of their cookies?
I do think if you are playing around with visuals, it really, really helps to draw out what you're doing. And you don't have to have amazing drawing ability, but I think just a rough sketch of what you're doing to have as a guide for yourself is huge. And just remember, if you are drawing digitally, have your device set so that the light doesn't turn off. Because that's always such a pain point for me is that it goes dark and I'm going back and forth trying to turn it back on. But I think that's the biggest tip that I have. And then just engage with other mediums as much as you can. I'm so inspired by other bakers. Yeah. But I also
like some of them.
My friend Abby, who I know you know, she's my neighbor. And
just Abby Balingit, the greatest fashionalist baker of all time.
Yeah. And she is like amazing with color in her personal life, the way she dresses herself. My friend Shaku is a really lovely baker. Aside from engaging with your like direct medium, just engaging with other art forms. Like I watch a ton of movies, but I do like get a lot of inspiration from film and fashion. And even if it's not an explicit reference, a feeling that I like want to capture. One thing that I have saved is a bunch of the older versions of Alice in Wonderland, like the really weird ones.
Yeah, but not like talking 70s, 80s, or even earlier.
Definitely, like the live action ones.
Yep.
There's like one really eerie one I remember watching as a kid, and I can't remember what year it was, but I've been thinking a lot about floral cookies, but like weird floral cookies. So I made some pansies recently, and thinking about the creepy flower faces in Alice in Wonderland, which are illustrated in the book too. Yeah, I've been thinking of that and like wanting to evolve that idea a little bit into something like less literal or a little more creepy. I've been really fixated on pansies and violets and the symbolism of violets. So I've been thinking about like violets in Greek mythology. And yeah, I love working off of storytelling and like, maybe not direct references.
It's so interesting that you're talking about the technicalities of like your iPad and it being your sketchbook, but then a lot of your stuff feels very rooted in like literature, media, things that are also very, very offline, they're centuries and centuries old. I think it's a fun little shtick. And I think it's so funny that you describe yourself as a chronically online person.
Yeah.
And I'm curious to hear how you found community online and how it's translated to your work and what you're doing.
Yeah. It's funny that I am so chronically online because I wasn't as a kid. I wasn't allowed to spend a lot of time watching TV or on the computer. Like, I was just running around in the backyard playing fairies. And I still love nature. And my mom is big into hiking, and I'm
so cute.
Not as much. But I'm like, I love the poetry of nature. That doesn't mean I want to go on a 7-mile hike, but I want to commune and like do my whole Emerson thing, I guess.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why I'm so chronically online now. I'm like making up for lost time. I was not an iPad kid, but now I'm an iPad woman.
Ooh, I like that.
I don't know if that's a good thing.
See, I call myself an iPad kid because I use it for like cooking and watching TV. But I'm going to use that one. I'm taking that one.
I'm an iPad woman. I will, unfortunately. I will be like on front of the TV and then my phone is next to me and the iPad's in front of me.
Too good.
I do love the idea of being offline. And I think I have a realistic relationship to the past. I don't think I like romanticize it, especially as a Black woman. And so I think I've always enjoyed the internet as like a creative space. I also was deep into Tumblr, but I wasn't using it really socially. I was just like looking at things and I don't know, being angsty. But yeah, I think it is a really great space. I think because I do share like a sincere piece of myself on there, not to get too deep into the conversation about like authenticity on the internet. And like my whole life isn't on there. But I think I share my genuine interests. And so I think it's a good place to find other people who share those interests. And it's also just a small world. So
yeah, I mean, for example,
I definitely have met people who I thought were really cool on the internet and learned after being internet friends with them that they live really close to me. I didn't find that out on my own. Like, we'd be like, want to hang out? And they're like, I'm not like, I know where you live.
Yeah, she's like, I researched on the iPad.
Maybe we should meet up. Putting that journalism degree to use. Maybe we should get coffee sometime. And it turns out that we're like streets away. We're blocks away from each other.
Yeah.
It can be a really special place for community. Not to romanticize it too much. Like, definitely get outside, smell the air. But yeah, I think I have been able to find genuine connection on there. That translates into real life.
Yeah, that's so cute. I know you mentioned Abby Belenka, who's a dear friend of both of ours and has been on The Future Food Is You and was in our most recent Icons issue. As someone that, you know, met online, also realized you're in the neighborhood together. Are there any creators that you admire and like their work that you would love to collaborate with on an art piece, a cookie, or something else?
I think in general, I'm really obsessed with Salter House and the owner.
Yes.
Have you ever been there?
I've been there. I bought one of their little Victorian nightgowns. Yeah, they're so amazing to sleep in. Yeah.
They're such a precious place. And so I love the space and I love their approach. Again, it feels influenced by the past, but definitely like very modern. And yeah, I would love to do something with them. And I always have such a lovely time just like sitting in their shop and like reading or something.
It's a really cute part of Brooklyn too. Yeah, I love that you said that part about not being too old school, but I feel like it's almost like a reverence for the details and the craftsmanship of that past, which it seems that a lot of your stuff shines through on. I want to talk to you about your relationship to social media because it seems like now you're kind of getting solely recognized for your work. What is your relationship to social media?
Again, like I think social media is really fun, but it definitely does scare me a little bit. I approach it with a mix of strategy and sincerity, just in the sense that I'm not going to share my whole life on there, but I do like to share things that I'm really excited about and nerd out with other people. Admittedly, I definitely have always been nosy. I remember being in like 5th grade and swapping purses with friends to see what we had in each other's purse. A real life, what's in my bag? We'll be like, can I look through your purse today?
Yeah. I want to be in this friend group. Can you just do this now as
I
adults?
would love to.
Okay, great.
When I realized like, oh, you can get a little peek into what people are doing on the internet. I love seeing what other people are doing, honestly, and what they're wearing and what they're making. I love to engage with the internet. I try to hold it at a healthy distance and remember, like, of course, these people are real, but it is just a separate little world that's in this box. And I can put it down and then I can be away.
We're seeing one window of the life that is their house. Yeah,
exactly.
And something I notice, and I want to bring light to it, is that I feel like you're in the world of I like to call them the creative pastries gang. You know, there's lots of cake artists, people just using food in these really awesome ways, but it's also a space that often doesn't feel as diverse. And I remember seeing your work and thinking, wow, I think this might be one of the first Black women in this sort of cottagecore aesthetic way. And it's interesting to see, too, that a lot of your inspiration also comes from Black artists, and you really hold that in high regard. As a woman of color in the creative food space, is representation and diversity something that you really think about as you start to put your work out there?
Yes, definitely. I think my work as someone who does love nature and does love a sense of the pastoral in terms of like cute little animals, florals, not to oversimplify it, but as far as internet spaces and algorithms, like I definitely have crossed over with the cottagecore vintage world. And there definitely is like a lot of conversation about race there, of course. I have grappled with like a discomfort around the vintage world of the internet. There have been moments where I'm like, maybe I shouldn't engage with any sense of the antique or the vintage because it's glorifying these certain things. But then I think if I'm doing it consciously, it is kind of honoring my ancestors. You know, I look at these beautiful portraits of some of my ancestors and really beautiful high lace necklines and like puffy sleeves. That is something that I want to engage with. There have been moments where I have thought maybe I should completely distance myself from any relationship with the vintage or the antique, of course, because I definitely have a complicated relationship with the past, and I don't want to glorify these really painful moments in Black history. But I realize that it is okay to engage with the past as long as I'm doing it like consciously. And I see these older portraits of my ancestors, you know, in these beautiful lace high necklines and puff sleeves. And these are people that I never got to meet and I can only wonder about. And I think sometimes creating art that in some sense is in conversation with the past is like a way of communing with them.
That's so beautiful. And I think that's so important. I think, yeah, definitely as Black women, we always have to be very conscious of what we let influence us, because I feel like for a long time, so much of the world hasn't included us. And I find myself in this all the time because I'm an old lady inside. Like,
Me too.
I love nostalgic things. I love the history of things, but knowing how people who were like me fit in is really tough. So I really commend you for really thinking about that. And I guess based on this, staying on the social media track, is there one thing you wish was different about food on social media and one thing that you wish stayed the same?
I mean, because it's a visual medium, I even have to catch myself not wanting to lean too heavily on, you know, what something looks like. I think it's okay. Like, it's natural as humans to perceive our food through our eyes in the simplest sense. Is it safe? Is it something that I would enjoy engaging with? But I think even in the things I create, I try to walk a fine line between interesting visually but not too gimmicky. And I think we are going away from that. You know, there was that period of really outrageous milkshakes.
Oh, we lived it in New York.
I had one, and I can really eat sweets, and I did not feel good after that. I felt kind of nauseous. So I think that's something that I think we're all kind of agreeing, like, does it actually taste good? And that's kind of what you can't really see on the internet, is if something actually tastes good, but not to focus too much on aesthetics.
I came up with this fun mini game we're going to call Can I Cookie That? And I'm going to give you 3 objects, and you're going to just kind of walk me through how you would make a cookie. So let's start off with a dinner plate with intricate hand-painted flowers and vines on the rim.
So this one I've actually tried, but I didn't
No way.
love the final result. I still want to return to the idea, but
Okay.
I think the technique needs some work. But I wanted to make one of those really beautiful, like, blue and white floral plates. Over the winter, I was going through this period where I was breaking up really tiny pieces of colored dough and, I guess, drawing, for lack of a better word, and made flowers. So I did that on traditional cookie dough and then rolled it out and then made what I guess I would call a ring shape. So that was essentially meant to be the rim of the plate. And then I put that on top like a slightly smaller circle so that had some dimension. But the outside one just kept sinking. But I think that's how I would do it. I think I would just make sure that there was more support to it. That would be my vision. And maybe even put some like really cute something on the plate.
Ooh, like a heart.
Yeah,
as
or
a
like
concept.
Tiny veggies. I don't know.
Oh, you want to go big time. I like that. I respect that.
Playing with my food.
Okay. I love that. Okay, next one. A leather-bound book with just the right amount of patina on it. Something that, you know,
Oh my God.
grandma passed down, mom had in her room, you're stealing it from the house.
I would really want this to have some dimension as far as the shape. I want it to have like some lift. But I think as far as the patina, the marbling effect, again, like I always kind of think about playing with clay without trying to overwork the dough. But yeah, I think I would do a marbling with brown and maybe even a slightly turquoisey color.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So the book being turquoise and then the patina kind of, wow, respect. I love that.
I don't
Okay.
know if it's doable, but
This one, I was really intrigued to see how I did this one. So think of a gold-plated mirror, something that probably is on the set of The Gilded Age, or a really regal cafe.
I think, again, it would be really fun to do some sculpted flowers if it would maintain its shape around the rim. And again, I would just do like a little oval sort of donut. And then I think in the center, it would be really cool if you could do, if you've seen Christmas cookies with the melted candy in the center.
Yes, yeah.
Something like that for the mirror effect.
Like a frosted window pane.
Yeah.
I got you. I
Yeah.
got you. Yeah. Okay, amazing. Well, if you do make these, please
I got you.
let me try one. Yeah.
It was your pitch, so I got you.
There we go. Something I want to touch on too is, you talk about Instagram and how it shows your work, but also just the realities of being an artist. Doing cookies is only part-time, and you're starting to also figure out what other writing projects and social media projects you can work on. What sparked the decision to go full-time? And can you tell us about how you think about the projects you're working on and how they inspire you?
I mean, I really just wanted the freedom to manage myself. And I felt like I was doing so many side hustles, and it was a lot. And I know so many people bake after hours, but I cannot see. My apartment is not well lit. It definitely is a privilege to be able to take a little more control over my time. And I love being independent and managing my own time. Yeah, so right now I'm kind of doing baking projects. I have a Substack now, which I've just kind of started. I mean, I've had the URL for a while, but it's coming to life now. There's a lot of complaint about having to scroll to the bottom of a blog to get to the recipe. And I'm not going to shade anyone who does that because it's really smart strategically. Sometimes it's what you have to do.
Yeah. Also, you want to tell a story with your recipe.
I love a backstory. But I was kind of thinking about that idea, and I was like, maybe I'll give you a story to enjoy while you're eating your creation. So I'll put it at the bottom and reverse it. So I'm working on recipes that kind of pair with little short fairy tales or folk tales.
This is amazing. As a kid who used to get in trouble for reading under the table, you made this for us.
Yeah. I mean,
I love that.
I always loved as a kid having my story and my little snack on the side. So
yeah, we would definitely have been friends.
Definitely.
Yeah. I love that. That's so awesome. But between balancing all that, what have been some of the challenges as you are navigating, how to work and be able to make money, but also stay creative? Because I think that's something we often don't talk about when you kind of come into the freelance world, just that sort of time of really trying to figure out what it is that you're consistently doing to be able to consistently bring home a bag,
I was talking to someone yesterday and they were saying that I thought they had a really cool job, and they were saying that their job is not their interest, it's just a job. And they're like, people always want to talk to me about it. Mm-hmm. And so I think it can be challenging when your passion is what you're making money doing or what you're doing to make money.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big challenge, dealing with burnout and making sure you are still enjoying it. And also, you don't have to monetize everything if you are able to keep some things for yourself. Yeah, I know I keep saying I'm on the internet all the time, but sometimes I will mention, an interest, and someone will be like, why don't you post that on Instagram? And I'm like, well, it's just for me.
Yeah. You can log off sometimes.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Let a girl have hobbies.
Yeah, that part. Again, I think that's the other thing too, is we're now in an interesting creative arc where when you're good at something and you like it because it's not related to work, there's an automatic push to you have to go do something with it. So I think it's really nice to not put that pressure on yourself. And I'm sure even that probably inspires you to bring that creativity or that sort of no stakes into the work that then really has meaning for you. Something I love too is that now you're starting to really work on a lot of fun, cute collaborations. You recently did something for Six Bells, which is one of my favorite stores, and also Loeffler Randall, an incredible company. How are you thinking about using your cookies and your craft as a means to work with other brands?
I think I've been really fortunate that some of the brands that have reached out to me, we do share a certain kind of visual language. So it's felt really natural. When Loeffler Randall reached out, I was really excited because they showed me the specific shoe that they wanted me to make into a cookie. And I felt like it was just such a natural fit. But just forming genuine connections with people with whom you share a creative language with.
Well, we are huge manifestors on the podcast, so I have to ask, are there any brands out there that you would love to make a cookie for?
I would say Lisa Says Ga, because I think they have such fun prints, and so many of them are already food themed. I have a skirt that just looks like a big dinner party, and I've been thinking about attempting to make that as a cookie. I don't know, it might be a lot, but yeah,
I believe in you. It can happen. You can start drawing it out on the iPad. Yeah. As you start to think about, spending more time in the industry and wanting to build community, what do you think the future holds for creatives, especially creatives of color, in the food space?
I think in general, it's about carving out your own space where you can. I do think having your own website, having your own newsletter is a great way to create a space that might feel a little more your own. And I think for Black creatives, it's great to be able to curate the kind of environment that you want to be working in, if you are able and if you have the privilege to do so. There's so many outside influences on the internet, but I do think it is a good opportunity to have some control over your career.
Where do you hope to see the Lauren cookie empire take off in the next 5 to 10 years? Are we just staying on cookies? Are we doing more food things?
I would love to expand. Cookies are just so fun because I think they create a perfect canvas because there's a simplicity to them and they're so malleable. But yeah, I think I would just love to expand in terms of like storytelling in a really big sense. Storytelling through food and in a literal sense, just writing a lot more to kind of pair with my cooking and baking.
Amazing. Lauren, thank you so much for this conversation. I am so inspired by you, and it was so enriching and sweet to make a pun out of it. If we wanted to continue to support you, where are the best places to find you?
You can follow my Instagram at Lauren_Dozier. And my Substack is Lauren's Flower Fairy Tales, FLOUR.substack.
That's amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Before we go, our guest is going to leave a voicemail just talking to themselves 10 years from now. You have reached the Future of Food as You mailbox. Please leave your message after the beep.
Hi, Lauren. This is Lauren, 10 years in the past. I'm really looking forward to meeting you. Right now, I'm 30 and a lot is changing, but most days we've been feeling a lot more powerful. I never thought I would feel this comfortable with myself, but I also think maybe I am already some version of the person that I thought I would become, like when we were little. I hope that you are content. I hope that you have a farm and lots of chickens and that you've stopped worrying so much. I hope you're writing every day and baking as much as you can, but I hope you're also allowing yourself to rest. And I really hope we've stopped biting our nails.
That's it for today's show. I would love for you to leave a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to our show. The Future of Food as You is a production of the Cherry Bomb Podcast Network. Thanks to the team at City Box Studios, executive producers Kerry Diamond and Catherine Baker, associate producers Jenna Sadu and Elizabeth Vogt, and content operations manager London Crenshaw. Catch you on the Future Flip.